Constructors are special methods that initialize objects. They have the same name as the class and don't have a return type. Their purpose is to ensure proper initialization. Constructors can take parameters and Java provides a default constructor if none is defined. In the code snippet above, we define a class called myClass. It has a constructor, which is denoted by the same name as the class. Inside the constructor, we can add code to initialize the object. In the main method, we create an instance of the class using the new keyword and the constructor. In Java, a constructor is a special method that is used to initialize objects of a class. There are three types of constructors in Java: default, parameterized, and copy constructors. A default constructor is automatically provided by the compiler if no constructor is defined by the programmer. It initializes the object with default values for all instance variables. A parameterized constructor is one that takes one or more parameters. It allows the programmer to initialize the object with specific values. A copy constructor is used to create a new object by copying the values from an existing object. This can be useful when you want to create a new object with the same values as another object. You can define your own constructors in a class by specifying the name of the class followed by parentheses. You can also use the this keyword to refer to the current object within a constructor. In this example, we have a class called myClass that has three constructors. The first constructor is a default constructor that initializes the instance variable x with a value of 0. The second constructor is a parameterized constructor that takes an int value and assigns it to x. The third constructor is a copy constructor that takes another myClass object as a parameter and copies its x value to this object's x variable. The class also has getter and setter methods for x. In Java, you can create multiple constructors for a class with different parameters using constructor overloading. This concept allows you to have multiple constructors in a class, each with a different set of parameters. By using different types and number of parameters, you can create objects with different initial states. Constructor overloading is useful when you want to provide different ways to initialize an object. You can have constructors with different combinations of parameters, allowing you to create objects with different initial state. By having default values for some parameters, you can also make them optional during object creation. Let's take a look at an example. We have a class called person with two constructors. The first constructor takes only a name parameter, while the second constructor takes both a name and age parameter. Inside each constructor, we assign the values to the respective fields. To create an object using a specific constructor, you can use the new keyword followed by the constructor call. For example, to create a person object with just a name, you can write person1 equals new person, John. To create a person object with both a name and age, you can write person2 equals new person, Jane, 25. Here's an example of a class called person with two constructors. The first constructor takes only a name parameter, while the second constructor takes both a name and age parameter. Inside each constructor, we assign the values to the respective fields. To create a person object with just a name, you can write person1 equals new person, John. To create a person object with both a name and age, you can write person2 equals new person, Jane, 25. Constructor chaining is the process of calling one constructor from another constructor using this and super keywords. It allows us to reuse initialization logic and is useful in many scenarios. Let's dive into the details. In the above code snippet, we have a class called myClass. The class has two constructors. The first constructor doesn't take any parameters and calls another constructor in the same class using the this keyword. The second constructor takes an integer parameter and calls a constructor in the parent class using the super keyword. In this slide, we will discuss some common pitfalls and best practices when using constructors in Java. Let's dive in. Here's an example of a simple class with a constructor. The constructor takes an initial value as a parameter and initializes the myField field. The doSomething method is just a placeholder. Let's move on to the next slide for more examples and explanations.